We just finished watching People We Meet on Vacation, the first adaptation of Emily Henry's incredible work. And I am going to, in this video, talk about how the adaptation does a really good job at narrowing the story, which is what an adaptation should do because it's shorter. This is a film. But in doing so, it highlights the romance, which is great, but it also gives up some of the things that make Emily Henry, in my opinion, the best writer of romance working today. She's at least my favorite. And the reason why I love her so much is because her characters have wonderful romance, but they also have really good plot lines around their work and their family and their friendships. They have very rich lives that make for really engaging reading. And in the process of adapting this film, they chose to get rid of some of those things, or at least to not explore them to the level that the book does. And at least for me, that took away some of the magic of the book. I also want to give a caveat that as much as I love Emily Henry and her work, and I've read it all, People We Meet on Vacation is my least favorite of her books. And the reason for it is that it has all these timelines and they don't necessarily go in chronological order. And I felt as I was reading it, like it was hard for me to really follow the emotional tension and string that she was creating because we keep moving back and forth. And I think Brett Helly, who directed the film, really did a good job at curtailing some of that unruly aspect of the book. He got rid of a bunch of the timelines, and he also made it so that we have our present timeline, and then we go in chronological order to the oldest timeline that gets played out in full. Then we go back to the present, then another older, and so on and so forth. So it was, I think, a good choice in terms of making the film easier to follow and to really get into the story of these two people who are best friends, eventually becoming lovers. But they lost some of the richness that they had, not just in the locations. The locations were great, and I think we go to great locations in this film as well, but in the fuller humans that we've come to love so much in an Emily Henry book, and now in her first adaptation. One of my favorite timelines in People We Meet on Vacation is when Poppy, played by Emily Bader, and Alex, played by Tom Blyth, meet for the first time. And I was watching this film with my husband, who's been hearing me talk about Emily Henry for 5 years ad nauseum, and he immediately goes, "Oh my God, it's When Harry Met Sally." And he's totally right. One of the great things you can do with an adaptation that's harder to do with a book is that you can bring in nods to other films or TV shows in that genre and bring them to life on the screen in ways that it's a little harder to do on the page. And for this, we have a flip. We have Alex is uptight, like Sally, played by Meg Ryan in the film, of course. And then we have Poppy is way more loosey-goosey and fun, the way that Harry is, and the way that Billy Crystal embodies with all the loosey-goosey funness that one can possibly have. And that dynamic inside a car, they're on a road trip. Instead of going to NYU, they're going back from Boston to their little town in Ohio, is just delightful. Why? Because it brings in immediate conflict. They're in this car and he's driving and he's like this and she's having a breakfast burrito and then he hits the brakes and there's food everywhere. You get the sense that these two people both need each other because she needs to become a little more considerate and not show up at 9 when she said she was going to be there at 8, and not show up with a bunch of food. But he also needs to loosen up. And who can loosen him up? She can. And that's just delightful to watch, because the beauty of opposites attract is that hopefully as they come together with their differences, they're also going to rub off on each other a little bit, so that the very uptight person will become a little bit more easygoing, and so that the too easygoing person will learn to be a little more rigid about certain things, not everything. And that's what we hope love will do for us, and the film captures it as beautifully as the book. Hands down, my favorite timeline in People We Meet on Vacation is the one in New Orleans. Why? Well, because the setting couldn't be more delightful, but also because they get to play with that favorite of all favorite tropes, in which two people who are really into each other but haven't been able to articulate it pretend to be together for whatever reason, and in the process of pretending manage to finally get out all these pent-up feelings and emotions and desires that they're having. And it's just so fun to watch. In this case, they find out that if you've just got engaged, people are going to give you free things because it's New Orleans. Best city, apparently. I've never been, but now I want to go. And so they start pretending that they're engaged, and suddenly, voila, here come the free beignets and all sorts of amazing things, including an incredible powder blue wig that she wears that makes her look so adorable. And then they end up at this bar, and people are like, oh, how did you guys get engaged? And they're, of course, egging each other on to tell this story, which, of course, is not true, but it's helping them to, again, come out with what they're feeling. And then she's like, oh yeah, that engagement dance and your choreography. And then they play Paula Abdul's Forever Your Girl, which I haven't heard, I don't think, since the 80s, but I was like, oh my God, I love that song. I'm like, Poppy. And then she goes off, and she's the powerful one, the all-out one, and she starts doing her dance, and he, who is the little uptight one, you're like, oh, what is Alex going to do here? And then, man, he dances rings around her. It's so good. And it's all dirty dancing, by the way, right? Like, I'm like, oh, this is the dirty dancing choreography. This is so fun and sexy. And again, an adaptation can carry you back to other cinematic moments and just completely transport you, because now you're feeling what you feel for this moment, and then you also are feeling what you feel for Patrick Swayze, and it brings it all together, and these people are gonna be just fine, even though it all falls apart because it's halfway through the movie. But it's like such a beautiful short, it's not even that long, sort of moment where they're portraying that trope to perfection. One of the things that so many of us who love Emily Henry love about her men is that they are the full package. They're the guy who, yes, you'll have amazing sex with, and of course he's really hot, but they're also the ones who will look after you at the most difficult times in your life. They're the ones who see you and listen to you and are there for you in ways that we really need a partner to be, and that sometimes the guys that are really great in bed are not necessarily there for you. And in People We Meet on Vacation, we see that with Alex and Poppy, but the problem for them is that for so long he's been there for her as a friend that that's one of the things that hampers their ability to be there as lovers. And it all comes to a head in the Tuscany timeline when we see her throwing up in the toilet, and my husband, who was like, oh, look, she's pregnant. I'm like, no, she's not pregnant. You know, I've read the book. And he's like, I don't know, in the movies when people throw up in toilets, they're usually pregnant. And guess what? She thinks she's pregnant. And the person she turns to is Alex. They have this moment in which he's looking after her and helping her process the scare of the pregnancy. And of course, it's Tuscany and it's night and the town is beautiful and it's all very romantic, because that's part of the charm of this particular film. And then she almost kisses him and he's like, what? And she's like, oh, nothing, I was confused. And he's like, what am I to you? And she's like, oh, you're just my friend, my best friend. That's all you are. And then it, you know, causes him to go and try to make this relationship with on and off Sarah work for him. But it's a really smart way to help us look at how this thing that makes him exactly the man that she should be with is also the thing that complicates their ability to be together, because she just keeps seeing him as the guy she can turn to when she's pregnant, not the guy that she's going to get pregnant by, even though she obviously wants him because she makes out with him or tries to, and then sort of stops herself. So it's a good look at just how complicated being the nice guy is, even though we know the nice guys in Emily Henry's world always win. As People We Meet on Vacation curtailed a lot of its storylines, it got rid of one that for me was really important. And it's Poppy's own journey as a writer. Maybe because I'm a writer and I really liked her journey as a writer. But when we meet her in the book, she's in the process of launching this blog that she travels places. She has no money. She has a blog, for God's sake. And she has all these fabulous adventures. And that's where People We Meet on Vacation comes from. The idea that if you go off on these weird, unplanned journeys and stay in hostels and, you know, wherever else, ride buses and trains and all of these things, you're going to have these adventures that are very hard to replicate in your day-to-day life, no matter where you live. And over the course of the book, she ends up becoming very successful with her blog, which then leads her to have this fabulous job at this travel magazine. The dream job that you want when you're just like putting money together as a blogger. And the difference though is that now she is staying in the dreamiest places, because these places, which are luxury destinations, want her to describe just how luxurious and perfect it can be to stay there so that people who read that magazine will come to them. But what it means is that the people we meet on vacation suddenly just become the person that's doing your massage, or the, you know, waiter that's bringing you that delicious espresso with I don't know what in it. And that part of her that had the wanderlust and that really got to know the reality of a place is no longer satisfied, because she's suddenly pushing something that doesn't have the charm of the life that she was leading before when she had no money. And that's a pretty traditional trajectory. And of course, at the end of the book, she's like, no, you know what? I'm going to go back to this thing because it's not fair to this magazine that I no longer feel it. And because it's not fair to me. I want to go back to leading that life, and maybe there will be less money in it. But that was the thing that moved me, and that's what I'm going to return to. And that is such a beautiful journey for a character, and we don't quite get it in the movie. It's very modeled because there's no time, because, you know, we're just focused on the romance, and the romance is great. But again, in a romantic comedy, you know they're going to end up together. That's no question about it. Otherwise, it would be a romantic tragedy, right? We know we're going to get our happily ever after or happy for now. So these other parts of the story are where the surprises are. And if you cut them out for reasons of space, then we lose that part of the journey, which I, at least, really loved in the book. One of the great delights of watching a movie is that you run into actors that you've seen in other places. And, you know, they feel like friends. You're like, oh my God, look who's here and look who's there. And especially if they're playing smaller parts, you had no idea they were going to be in it because, you know, you've seen the poster, you know who the main characters are. And for people we meet on vacation, they had some great actors that I absolutely adore. So one of the strengths of the adaptation was the casting, but for me, one of the weaknesses was that I wanted more time with these amazing actors and characters. Jameela and Jamil, whom we just love so much from The Good Place. She is so delightful. She plays Poppy's boss, Swapna, and she comes in with all her delightful beauty and wit and smarts and all those things. I mean, she's Jameela Jamil, but she just has 2 scenes and they're very short. And because Poppy's storyline around her career got pretty curtailed, they don't play the role that they used to in the book, which again, I know is a danger of adaptations, but it was nice to see her, and I wish we had a little more. Miles Heizer, who is in Parenthood. He is the child of Lauren Graham and the brother of Mae Witman, and that's a show that I absolutely adore. Plays Alex's brother, who's getting married. The whole reason why they're ending up going to Barcelona together, Alex and Poppy, is to this wedding. And again, he was fabulous in the scenes that he had, but it would have been nice to have a little more, especially because the family part of Poppy and Alex was always an important aspect. Alex has a dad that is very sad because his mom died, and that makes Alex the way he is. And Poppy has these hilarious parents who are so loving and out there, and they love to talk to you about sex, which is why Poppy is the way that she is. And again, just like the 2 of them complement each other, so do their parents. And it would have been great to have a few more scenes with them, including the great Alan Ruck, who, last time you saw him maybe was on Ferris Bueller's Day Off as Cameron. And as Cameron, he is so funny and sort of like stuck in his own shell because he too has horrible parents. And now in this iteration of him, he's grown up to be this very funny, very loving, very satisfied dad who thinks he's talking about sex with Alex, who's in fact talking about flying. And it's such a short scene, but it's so fun. And I'm glad that when they were there, they made the magic happen. I just wish that we'd had a few more. But again, adaptations are hard to do. And I don't like watching 3-hour movies. I don't think they're very good. So I respect the fact that they kept this one at 1 hour and 57 minutes. So, hey, it was made with love. Emily got to have a little cameo, and it's fabulous. Oh, look for her. It's a great cameo. And she wrote on her Substack how much she loved it, the adaptation, the experience, how incredible the director was about asking her opinion on things, how welcoming and loving they were. The pictures on her Substack are great. She clearly was on set a lot, and it was a great experience. And I think the movie reflects a lot of that joy. It just suffers from some of the things that all adaptations suffer from, which is that the books allow you to have a much bigger world, and in a movie you have to make choices, and some of the choices they made worked beautifully for me. Some of them didn't work as well, but hey, it was really fun to watch. So thank you so much for watching. Please comment and share and tell me, have you seen the film? Have you not? Have you read the book? What is your favorite Emily Henry book? And are you excited for the new batch of adaptations? Because they're coming. And she wrote at least one of them. So we're gonna see also what it looks like for her to adapt her own work. And it's going to be fantastic. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, stay big-hearted.